Acer, it is MMA. Playing some great games, and his opponent, a player that's honestly shown some incredible Terran versus Protoss so far, but let's see his TVT for this tournament. From Team Liquid, it is Taeja. Taeja, of course, he's one of those guys who's been playing so well towards the latter half of this year. MMA made some deep runs in WCS Europe, but now both of them kind of playing really the first TVT that we're getting to see here, at least, on the main stage. Taeja, of course, was in that group with Show, Innovation, and 4GG, and did manage to make it out top in that group. So let's see what both players have in store. Taeja opting to open with the Barracks first, and MMA opting for the Gas first. A very quick factory-based build for the Acer Terran player. Potential here for a very fast Banshee attack. Something that MMA really likes to go for in this matchup. Gives you that flexibility of not only the early aggression, but if your opponent brings some type of aggression, it gives a quick switch into something like a Raven or a Viking. Even access to Widow Mines to lay early pressure from your opponent. And we even see that Taeja is playing with an incredibly late gas, potentially no gas for a 1 barracks expand. Playing a lot more economically this game, and now even sending the SCV out to scout.
I think taking no gas at all is super risky, right? Going 1 barracks command set, not having any form of tech to defend against likelihood that we could see a gas first from MMA, which is the case. I think that's risky, and he has decided to take a 15 gas, but ultimately, Taeja's going to be playing the defensive player, where MMA should be with a gas first here being the aggressor.
Yeah, so it seems the barracks will be wrapping up in just a few seconds' time. He has the gas. There is the factory immediately planted. And one of the things that Taeja can do with this, as he does get this scout, because he's taken the later gas, obviously it'll be a bit more difficult for him to reach that starport tech than for MMA. But if he goes for the fast starport and gets out a Viking, the time it takes to get out a Banshee, he can also have the Viking coming out as the Banshee crosses the map and still be able to get a missile turret up to protect his expansion. So I feel like if Taeja controls well, there is a potential here for him to gain an edge by defending properly against whatever aggression it is that MMA decides to bring, as he does take a second refinery.
But aggression doesn't necessarily have to be the choice from MMA. Innovation, his teammate, opens up the same like we see from MMA, but gets a Raven instead of a Banshee. And it's a super defensive build, which is almost technically hurting his economy because it's such a defensive build. He's investing in a Raven earlier on, so early, in hope that his opponent be aggressive. So that is definitely an option here from MMA. But we all know how MMA likes to play. He likes to be the aggressive play. He likes to be the one to be able to control the Banshees, to get in to do damage. I would expect to see a Banshee here.
Yeah, I have to agree. It just makes sense. It's kind of it's just the style of MMA. Taeja is actually building the command center, his natural one, inside of his main base. He's keeping everything condensed a little bit. A Banshee could still end up poking this from the outside, but what it means is he doesn't have to defend 2 mineral lines at the moment. He can kind of keep everything together, push this attack away whenever it does come, and try to advance out. He's open with about 6 or so Marines, possibly to go straight into the Hellion production. This is actually a very 4GG-esque build. This is the type of build we saw him use versus Innovation, except, as you stated, Innovation opted for the Raven, wherein we're seeing MMA make that rush for the Banshees.
And MMA is not only rushing Banshees, he's gone for Widow Mines as well, so it's going to be double. There's going to be a lot of damage coming out from MMA, potentially. And the series, so far, well, this game, should I say, is going to come down to how well does Taeja defend, and can he defend against what we're seeing from MMA? Because if he can, then Taeja's going to gain a big lead in this game, but if he cannot, then that's where MMA can build a second command center, can easily catch back up in the game.
Yeah, and he actually only builds 2 Hellions with this factory. Very interesting play from Taeja. He wants to go right back into the Marines. His starport's done. Looks like he wants to put it straight onto that tech lab. So we could actually see a fast Raven from him. The Raven follow-up is there for MMA as the first Banshee leaves. And these 2 Hellions can scout. Widowmine actually grabs one of these for free. Pretty nice catch for MMA. As Taeja gets in, he sees no natural just yet. He could poke up into the main, but there's 5 Marines waiting as well. Looks like Taeja's Banshee Raven might actually be out here in time for this Banshee attack.
And if it is, and if he's able to push back this attack, or this Banshee, then he's going to be in good position. Here it is cloaked up. How much damage will it do?
It's coming in now. The Marines are postured. He could try to use a scan to grab this, but would be a little bit difficult. He's only about 10 seconds away from that Raven. Then a Viking begins. Of course, with the Banshee's ability to micro, he could still dodge all the Marine attacks. He's going for a couple kills. Banshee's managed to go to about 5 now. There's the Raven. The Marine's starting to push him away, but of course he has to watch out for the 2 mineral lines. He can actually kill these SCVs as they come out. Being rallied away is a smart play by Taeja, but not able to save that first one. And behind this, MMA going double command center siege tanks.
Yeah, double command center here. Oh, let's get that hell in. Double command center is saying, well, I haven't really been able to kill that many SCVs, but overall, if the game goes on and nobody attacks each other for the next few minutes, then eventually MMA is going to have more SCVs in his opponent because he has 3 command centers compared to 2. Killing 4 workers is decent, and especially because the Banshee's still alive and there could be more deaths.
Yeah, comes in, actually just pokes away at another Marine. Of course, without the combat shield, they die in 2 hits. And with that range advantage, the Banshee has that ability to kite. But I like that he's going straight for the siege tanks. If you want to get this fast third command center, you need to kind of go into your own sort of defensive mode. MMA's now adding on the additional barracks. And I do like that he has the Banshee. I think when you can keep the Banshee alive and keep that pressure on, it allows you to make these greedy plays. I'm kind of wondering, I don't think Taeja will assume that this is his natural command center. It still feels a little bit late, but...
Yeah, no, he knows. He knows.
Yeah, so it just comes down to what does Taeja respond with? Will he go for extra barracks? We saw Innovation try to win with a huge bio timing off of 2 bases, something that's popped up a little bit less commonly. And there Taeja says, no, I'll go for the 3rd command center instead.
Yeah, trying to break a Terran play when they have siege tanks out there, even with 3 command centers. And yes, he doesn't have a lot, but with siege tanks in good position, they almost, it doesn't matter how many units you have if they're in good position because they can kill a lot. They're very efficient units. So he's decided, I could try something, probably not really going to work, throw down the 3rd command center, and yes, he will play from behind a little bit, and eventually I think we will see MMA climb up in SCVs, but if we look at it, 38-44, Liquid Taeja's still in the lead, and that 3rd command center hasn't yet really allowed MMA to catch up and overtake, so overall, it's not that bad of a situation at all for Taeja.
Yeah, I feel like both of these players have gotten a feel that the other isn't going to bring that crazy fast attack. So with double engineering base coming in for both of them and the stim timings being relatively similar, it seems that both of them kind of looking a little bit more towards the later stage of that game. Maybe we'll see a bit more action once we get closer to the 2-2 setup. There could be some jockeying for position outside of the 3rd bases on this map, since there's a couple of spaces where you can siege from the low ground. But Taeja adding on additional barracks, MMA getting additional barracks of his own, and both players have their 1-1 at almost the exact same time.
So this game's going to go on for a long time, I'd like to say here. It's going to be all about positioning. It's going to be about the tanks and Marines and who can gain position on each other. On 2 bases, it's almost impossible to find a position on each other because you're tucked so tightly and defensively. So it's really going to come down to army movement, cycling through the middle of the map. Who's going to be able to maybe pull off a successful drop? Who's going to be able to siege underneath their opponent's 3rd bases? These are the things that we're going to have to look out for, but MMA does get in there with a Banshee. Again, the same Banshee I'd like to hope.
Yeah, keeping that Banshee alive just allows it to be so much more cost-effective. It's at 11 kills now, doing a great amount of damage to MMA. And look, the Marines actually move away. This Banshee can start to poke away at a few more of these workers. And this is just MMA keeping those early game of units alive for the mid-game harass. It almost feels like we're seeing a Protoss style of Oracle play. If you can keep it alive, there's so much utility that you can get pulling these forces around as as Taeja goes to take that 3rd base. But this Banshee's, it's climbed up to 15, 17 kills. He's actually started to take a serious bit of a dent into the economy of Taeja. And now you actually have one of the nice things for Taeja, at least though, taking that 3rd command center, is that he has a Marine parked on the 3rd base of MMA. He'll be able to slow that down at the very least. If he can mine off his 3rd a bit faster, that'd be a nice edge. Taeja is going to have his army up a little bit sooner. I don't know if it's going to be enough of an edge in the sort of the timing that'll have an upgrade lead per se, but he does secure this gas, and we actually see MMA bringing a drop towards the 3rd base of Taeja, going in for that little bit of aggression, and he's actually using the auto turret drop. A bit of a less common strategy, but it does force units to come over.
Yeah, it forces units to come over. He's got a couple of kills there with the auto turrets. Just a couple, everything better than nothing. And as you see, army movements through the middle of the map. One of the most important parts, maybe some people don't realize, I think it's scans. Scans is actually one of the biggest things that's going to be a difference between a winning move and not, because a scan will reveal so much. You know where your opponent is at all times. You can see his army movement. Maybe he's out of position. Maybe he's not sieged up.
Positioning is everything in Terran versus Terran.
Yeah.
Being able to know where the opposing army is the number one move. You always want to keep your tanks on siege as long as possible. If you see that your opponent moves towards a certain area, then you plant yourself in that spot until they leave. But we see now the position of Taeja, looking at his siege tank line set up outside that natural, it's not the most mobile force at the moment. And if MMA tries to move up towards this third base, siege the low guard, and drop Marines inside of the third, Taeja could have a bit of a hard time getting himself over there. We see his bio moving, but Taeja's tanks are not close enough to defend this. Now he's unsieging them, but is it too late? Will MMA be able to do some damage here?
Well, he's got a beautiful position underneath this third base. Remember, he's got combat shields, and Taeja hasn't. And, well, Taeja stims forward, and this can be kind of ugly because tanks are doing a lot of damage to these Marines. And MMA continues to have a pretty decent position. Not only does he hold a strangle, hold on this third, is that imagine a drop or two inside the main base, and I think it even may be happening, I'm not too sure what's blinking down there, but imagine something along those lines, especially because Taeja's focusing so heavily on that location.
I mean, Taeja does an auto turret drop of his own with the Vikings at the third base of MMA, but Marines blast through this, and MMA is just looking so sharp this game. The resources lost tab favoring him by about 3,000. He's been so much more cost effective in these fights. He's found ways to make his units useful in weird ways, and by keeping Taeja's tanks positioned down here, it also opens up the opportunity for him to attack other locations. Thankfully, Taeja will know if an attack comes towards his main because of that sensor tower, but this is still a very aggressive spot that MMA's managed to lock onto.
And he's not going to let go of it easy. Not at all. The scan does reveal where Taeja is holding up. And tanks even in range of that command center, which means they're in range of a couple of mineral patches on that right-hand side. He's got to be careful not to lose any units of siege up there. But look at the difference in supply, 193 to 156. That's rather big considering for the early and mid, well, the early mid stages of this game, they were identical with their openings, identical with their build, identical with their strategy. But this position has opened up a major difference between the both of them.
Yeah, slightly more important as far as the supply count goes is the tanks, however. And Taeja has 8 versus the 10 of MMA. Eventually, MMA could reach a point where if he spreads this tank line thin enough, he could charge through with the lead in numbers. But it does open the opportunity. Taeja, though, needs to get these tanks off of his third base. He's invested a ton of resources into repairing the command center. He's lost SCVs. He's been not able to mine off some of these patches. Bring some SCVs over to give the vision and tank some damage. And he will finally push some of these off. But look at the main force of MMA. He's getting ready to charge into Taeja's natural. This could be a bit of an overcommitment. He's stepping in. The siege tanks for Taeja are lending a lot of damage. He's actually starting to take some somewhat decent trades since the 2-2's done. There's a medevac lead, and Taeja pushes MMA back.
This is a good pushback because not only did he do that, but he has 2 medevacs on the other side of the map. They are fully loaded with Marines, and MMA put everything into that, and he doesn't really have much left over to defend. A beautiful move from Taeja, starting to equalize the supply a little bit here. He's starting to mine back from his third base properly, and despite not being able to mine from that third, he's just picked off the third of MMA as well.
A huge boon for Taeja trying to claw his way back in this game. MMA loads up the Doom Drop. The sensor tower sees it. Can he react in time? He's got 8 medevacs full of units. The siege tanks, the Marines dropping inside his main base. His barracks actually funnels Taeja's units into a choke point. Can he press the Acer Terran out of his base? No. GG from Liquid Taeja.
Wow.
And MMA says, no, I'm keeping this game in my pocket.
Without a gas on this map, whirlwind.
The advantage that you gain in Terran versus Terran, opening without gas, even sometimes a command center first into a factory, you leave yourself open to that pressure from the fast starport so much that you have to have 100% confidence. The size of the map almost doesn't matter in TVT. The medevacs can get there quickly. Banshees aren't the slowest units, but it really comes down to how confident they feel holding it off and how much damage they believe they can do despite the map's size. But we're here on Whirlwind, spawning in the bottom right position. Take a peek at the tower. We have a very beautiful tower, the Protoss emblem there.
Describe that tower to me, Nathanias.
It's very, very beautiful.
Describe those weeds and
those
things
sharp
around
ridges, those Protoss
Describe
symbols.
that flag above the tower, Nathanias.
Looks like something from Diablo, to be honest. They have those little flags.
Tell me how important that tower is, Nathanias.
Whoever has this tower in 15 minutes will win the game. But our first combatant in the southeast position, the Red Terran from Acer. He's up 1-0. It's MMA. And his opponent in the northeast, the blue Terran player from Team Liquid, almost pulled that last game back. It's Taeja.
Taeja, probably expected to be finishing in the winner bracket final, straight to the grand final where he's meant to take the entire of the tournament. A lot of people, knowing how well Taeja's been playing recently, actually went around with a microphone not too long ago saying, who do you think's going to win and why? And the majority of people were saying Taeja because he's bloody good at this game. And to be honest, he is really good and he's been performing very well. But as we can see in the score at the bottom, he's currently losing against MMA. 0-1 in this best of 3. It's down to Taeja now to show everybody why people think he's going to win. Why should Taeja win this tournament? He tweeted not even that long ago saying, hello, my name's Taeja, I'm going to win DreamHack. Well, no, you're not if you're going to lose against MMA because you're going to go down to the losers bracket and it's going to be very difficult. So it's up to him now to show us.
It certainly is, and Taeja opening with a pretty brave, strong attack. He's a very confident opening with the command center first. He's not worried about at least dealing with the fastest possible aggression. And to be perfectly honest, if you go CC first with this gas this quickly after the barracks, you're not too slow behind the type of opener that MMA is doing. He barracks into the 15 supply gas, means I feel like this is honestly a bit of a build order win for Taeja as far as the early game goes. What really matters is what does MMA do with the gas that he mines and how much can he make of it to try to equalize how fast this command center gets up for the Liquid player.
Why do you think that MMA decided to open up with this kind of defensive gas here? Do you think that he was expecting Taeja to play a bit more aggressive in the early stages? Because as we can see, it's the complete opposite, which means why you think that this build order is in favor of him.
Well, it still leaves a couple of options on the table for MMA. He'll come in and scout this command center first. He knows that he's just straight north of him, which means that fast drop play can still work off of 2 bases for MMA if he can get Hellions in. If he can get a Banshee in even, that could do a lot of damage because in TVT, no matter what phase of the game it is, you try to cut as many corners defensively as possible. If you don't need to build missile turrets, you try to avoid that as much as you can. You want to get out your other tech units, your Vikings, your Ravens, your units that are going to help you survive to the later stages as much as you can. And we see that the factory's only just about maybe, 10 seconds faster for MMA. It's not the biggest difference ever. He takes the quick gas following it up. So there is that potential for him to rush to the starport and still do the Banshee play. Taeja likewise also opening up with that gas. Could go for a bit more of a Hellion-centered setup since he's getting the reactor as well. But I'm mostly wondering what they do with their starports and whether or not they try to get that fast third command center.
I'm sure Taeja right now, without having scouted his opponent, must be saying to himself, I probably need to be defensive at this point. I've gone for a command center first. It's been spotted relatively early, and I have no idea what MMA is doing. So I'd imagine straight away here, we'd be going over to a more generic army composition. What's that? An engineering bay coming down. Sorry, I couldn't quite see what that was. An engineering bay, turrets coming down, Vikings immediately. Depending on if he goes over to the Raven first or not, we could see a Viking then over to Raven, depending on his gas count as that starport finishes. But absolutely, with no information in this game, maybe he has to scan. Maybe he needs to scan inside this main base to find out what's going on.
Yeah, it's a tricky situation. There is the scan, and he sees this starport, the engineering bay, a little bit of star sense from Taeja. At the very least, he can have a missile turret. So this strikes me curious because the last game he actually opened up with the Raven and Marines, no missile turrets to defend against the Banshee. So he's either feeling a bit more worried about what the Banshee can do, or he wants to open up with his own Banshee and leave something back to defend. So it is the Raven, and I feel like Taeja's saying after that last game, I really don't want the Banshees to hurt me that much again.
But it's not a Banshee. that's the big thing here. It's a Widowmine drop, and the other gas has gone into Stim nice and early. So there's definitely going to be aggression coming out from MMA, but it might not be the aggression that Taeja's expecting. But whatever Taeja's expecting, because he doesn't quite know exactly what's coming, he just knows something most likely is going to come his way. He's created a wall off with supply depots in that bunker. He has a 5 SCV lead because of the opening that he's chosen. Is this Widowmine drop with a couple of Marines, as Taeja just misses it, going to equalize that?
Well, I mean, Taeja needs to have his Hellions at home. He could deal with it without too much trouble, but it's going to come down to how fast Taeja responds. If the SCVs immediately get pulled, he's still going to have a really rough time killing it without any actual fighting units there. The Raven, of course, can reveal it, but all of his Marines are down in that bunker. His Hellions are making their way towards the base of MMA, and here come the Widowmines with those Marines inside, and even if the Widowmines don't kill them off, the Marines can still finish off weakened SCVs. There we see the Widowmine destroyed, and I think this was not necessarily a bad thing. If there was a Viking or the Raven gave chase, then maybe this Widowmine could pick something off in the third base. But MMA still bring very confident play, going straight to this double engineering bay, has the third command center as well. Taeja starting his command center, but everything's just moving slightly slower for the Liquid player at this point. He has a lot of Hellions, though, that he could potentially just blast right through. MMA invested a lot into this early aggression.
There's Nathanias, there's not too much on the front door here, and that lead which MMA's building up through being greedy with double engineering bay and 3 command centers, I think's about to go down the loo, as we say in England, because there's nothing here to defend. A single Marauder comes out, and SCV bot, well, SCVs, yes, they're going to hold the line for a little bit. Well, once they get melted, there's not much less. And look at the SCV difference, 44 to 26.
The Hellion counterattack, perfect way to deal with this fast drop play. Did not do enough damage, wasn't able to hold Taeja back, and now he's paying the price in workers. He's lost 21 SCVs so far this game. The bio comes out. MMA actually has that stim pack completed, and he picks off most of the Hellions without too much trouble. So he's down 25 SCVs to 45, and like you said, it looks like Taeja's going mech.
Double armory mech.
It's one of the best ways to play.
It's the best way. So double armory mech coming out here, going to be upgrading twice at the same time, but look at the difference when it comes to SCVs now. We talked a lot about the openings and how Taeja had a little bit of advantage, then MMA tried to equalize it, and behind it, he never really invested too much into the drop, but he was playing incredibly greedy behind it. Adding on a lot of production, a lot of reactors, double engineering bay, and very simply couldn't defend against the counterattack of Hellions, as we just saw. And throughout all of that effort to get back into the game equally, after seeing a command center first, it's 33 SCVs to 52. Taeja's right back where he was at the start of the game. If not, he's further ahead than he was at the start of the game. And now with double armory and additional factories, Taeja's controlling this game heavily.
Yeah, he's in a very nice position. We see him also adding on the blue flame. He's moving pretty early on into the Hellbats, so we could see some drop play come in. This drop with the Marines is held back. That one Windmine trying to grab something. No luck just yet. And the Hellions already making their way to remove that from the equation. It's important to keep in mind, however, that with the 3 command centers, it's not that hard for MMA to replace his SCV, so he can kind of even things out soon. He'll take his third base a little bit faster. And while his unit production gets limited by the economic damage he took early on, Bio is one of those play styles. If you can get 1 or 2 really good engagements against an unsieged mech player, coming back from behind is not that difficult. It's just going to require some very patient play from Taeja. And I really like that he's playing with the Mass Hellion style as well.
What was that? All right, so let's have a look how MMA is going to get his way back into this game. He needs to start to do something, because I guess you could say if Taeja just races towards the 200 supply mark, a bigger an army he can get, then that army with double upgrades from double armory, I think it's going to be very difficult to stop the Taeja steamroll train. I think it's going to be almost impossible.
It really just comes down to how well Taeja can control. MMA is one of those players that has classically been known for being able to pick off lots of mech players with his bio. MMA is a player that really strongly likes to stick with this bio style. To your point, though, with the blue flame finishing, if Taeja can secure any further advantage in this game, it's going to become very difficult to stop. The bio army is a bit more mobile, but this map is large enough that it kind of negates that. The defensive advantage for Taeja reinforcing his units back home is solid. There's a lot of angles to attack from on Whirlwind. We'll have to see what he can do to pull himself in here. We do have, actually, he's already starting to mix in Banshees very early on with the second starport. Oof. I think he's kind of saying, this is a risk I need to take to recover from that earlier loss I had.
All right, well, let's see if that kind of risk can pay off, because he needs some way back into this game. Currently losing majorly behind in supply at this point against a mech player, when that really should be reversed at this stage of the game. And MMA, what are you going to do? He's got his third base up now, just going to start to take his gases. Does have 2-2 upgrades on the way, but of course we do have 2-2 on the way here for Taeja. A scan from Taeja on the natural, having a look at what units have been waypointed across. Hellions there as well. Through seeing an empty natural, he may try to rush these Hellions in. It would be a bit of a risk not knowing where the rest of the units are. He is coming down this left-hand side, Nathanias, and that looks like a juicy metallic mineral line to me. And these Hellions, well, the SCV difference going to start to change again. Yeah,
there was just about finally even, but when you're ahead and you're playing mech, it's not that bad to just throw Hellions away. If you can kill off some SCV, slow down that bio player, and even pick off a few of these Marines. You force out a lot of stims. A lot of these Marines are in low health, starting to chew through the energy on those medevacs. And we're actually seeing Taeja very smartly start to add in Thors to this composition. The Banshee play is not going to catch him off guard. 3 Thors being built at once, saying, I'm pretty much just going to start one-shotting Banshees if you dare to bring them close, considering he still has a pretty sizable Viking count.
MMA is going to face up against a strong army soon because Taeja's, you know, on the highway to a maxed out army. He's almost there. He's got 20 more supply and he's going to be maxed out. An army which I'm still feeling that is just going to walk over this game. Taeja doesn't know about this expansion in the bottom left, but that's not going to help MMA. Not for a long time in this game. And already we are starting to see Taeja get ready. 2 upgrades are about to complete, and that's probably the natural timing he'd like to hit here. Is he going to make a mistake where his units are on siege? Does it even matter because he's got 1,000 Hellbats in front of these tanks? The Viking count in favor, everything in favor of Taeja for this point.
And just to add, you know, the tip of the iceberg for this is that he actually has still the upgrade advantage for the Vikings because of the combined mechanical upgrades. Even if MMA was slightly ahead in the Viking count, these Vikings for Taeja are now 2-2 in just a few seconds time. With the Thor support, if the Vikings clump up at all for MMA, he's going to have a really difficult time getting any damage done whatsoever.
Taeja patiently waiting for the opportunity to pounce. He's setting up that 4th base on the right-hand side. He's got additional starports coming in. Scans going down everywhere, looking for that army. From both sides, MMA and Taeja scanning, just always looking for where the army is. MMA's on this right-hand side here. He may try to stim to get towards this 4th, and Taeja scans, sees on top exactly where this army is. Oh, he's got medivacs full of Hellbats. He's going to drop right on top, and we are going to have a major engagement here. And I can't help but feel this is Taeja who's going to walk all over this.
He's just blasting through this. MMA trying to fight this army halves at a time. The Hellbat drop adding in a lot of power to this, but he actually chews through a pretty significant number of those siege tanks. MMA trading about as cost effectively as he can given the situation, but not able to kill off. That 4th base means Taeja's still going to happily chug along mining. He's still putting out the Hellbats. He's getting that +3 vehicle plating. And he's also, we see MMA going for his own 3-3 and the personal cloaking. I feel MMA, it's one of those things where you got to stop that doom push from coming. If you can trade enough that you make Taeja sit back and say, okay, I need to replenish my tank count. Taeja's playing with a very, very low tank count mech. And if you have enough Marauders, Hellbats can be kited with the concussive shell, and Thors, they don't trade terribly well versus this bio if you have even resources invested. So this is starting to get into a pretty weird situation where I feel like Taeja really needs to keep a good eye on his tank count. Winning with just Hellbats and Hellbat drops is not going to be really an option on a map this big.
Taeja was looking for the 4th base. He didn't see it, so he is sitting back in no need to rush out if my opponent's got a massive supply here. But he's going to drop into the natural mineral. I'm just going to do damage to the SCVs and does lower that count down to 51 for MMA. And does get out with the 3 medivacs, trading off a couple of Hellbats here. Why not at this point? But as you did say, MMA did bring Taeja back to 170 supply instead of 200. He's only at 190 now, but he will be back to 200 very shortly, where we'll see him move out again. That base in the bottom left, though, that's where the 4th is. Taeja doesn't know about it, but he doesn't care at the current point.
I mean, it's kind of interesting. He's traded away the area of effect damage that you could get from siege tanks with these Hellbats, and now MMA is going for another engagement. If he keeps his bio spread, the Hellbats can't do as much, but there's so many of them tanking this damage that Thor's getting hit from the back. MMA's got about as good a spread as you can get versus this mech ball, forcing the Vikings even to be landed. These medivacs not doing much for Taeja anymore as these Marauders blow through the standing army of Taeja.
Look at that, Nathanias.
So much supply invested into these medivacs and Hellbats, and MMA saying, bro, you need a lot more tanks than that to stop my army, even mixing in some of Taeja's own Banshees as a way to try to say, hey, you've got so many Marauders, the Marine count's starting to get a little bit low on its own.
And Taeja now is going to have to sit back for a long time to rebuild what he's just lost. It's not easy to just instantly remax out with mech. He lost a lot of expensive units there, and MMA in the middle of the map. As you said, whoever's controlling the Xel'Naga tower at the middle point of the game is going to have a good time, right? But it was MMA controlling it, and as we saw, a perfect surround is able to deal that well. Taeja's still scanning. He's like, where is his 4th base? By now, he has to realize there's a 4th base somewhere else. MMA's not going to be sitting on 3 bases for this long, 21 minutes in the game. And Taeja in a bit of trouble now.
Yeah, MMA's building more command centers at his hidden base as well. He's trying to chase down these Banshees of MMA. So now we're starting to see Taeja. I think he's starting to realize, okay, I need siege tanks to win this game. I'm not going to be able to take this without those. And he's loading up still a lot of medivacs, a lot of supply in the medivacs, makes taking a head-on engagement where he can't get the Terran army clumped up under those Hellbats very, very difficult. And now the Bio army moving, the positioning is everything. And now this planetary fortress is going to be sniped off. He's cutting down the economy of Taeja. That's one less base he's got mining. MMA is dying very hard in this match, doing everything he can to stay alive.
He's doing excellent, but a big drop here from Taeja. A lot of Hellbats, and, well, Marines not so good against Hellbats. They get absolutely roasted there. And Taeja does move down, has taken a supply lead once again. He did pick off the 4th base, MMA that is, the 4th planetary fortress, but in return lost a lot of units, and the tank count is starting to rise once again. Does MMA have what it takes to stop this push from Taeja? Taeja's got a byline straight towards the natural. He's going to siege up on this ramp. Does MMA have enough in numbers to crush this?
I think once this siege up is completed, he's going to blast through a lot of what MMA has. He's trying to hit from both directions with the SCVs and what's coming from the production. Some of the tanks still standing strong, but the workers are actually getting on top of them. MMA hitting for both sides. He's shooting through a lot of what Taeja has, but the reinforcing siege tanks and Hellbats with the Viking and medevac cover is just too much. Taeja up 121 supply to 83. MMA still has his economy mining from afar, but how does he get this army off of him? The tank count is still pretty low as far as what's at his base now, but I don't know if the production itself can stop Hellbats from just being rained on top of this bio army.
That's right. An excellent couple of big moves by both players throughout this game, and this is another one by Liquid Taeja, up 50-60 supply now. And he's camping that base. He's got that natural. He's dropping on the 3rd, and this is going to be almost impossible to break down with the Viking lead as big as it is here. How are Medivacs even going to get close? He can't even try to drop on this army, and he knows. GG.
The next round, the semifinals of the winner's bracket, and who has to go to the loser's bracket. We are here in spawning in MMA. And his opponent in the northwest, the blue Terran from Team Liquid, it is Taeja. Crowd showing a lot of support for both of these players, as they've made great runs in both the Korean tournaments as well as especially the foreign circuits this year.
Yeah.
And nothing terribly unusual just yet. And I'm kind of wondering now what kind of mid games we're going to see. This is not a bad map for that gas first play that we saw before. And also not a bad map for some of the more, defensive styles like the Reaper expand. You might even see.
Would love to see Mech. Some of you may know him too. He's cast a lot of DreamHacks with me. And we do like Mech together.
Mech is pretty awesome.
Mech is pretty awesome, and this map can play well left-hand side if you're Liquid Taeja are situated. It is a lot easier for you to so there's no large open spaces. You can have tanks on a high ground covering multiple positions. It's overall a pretty good map for Mech. But let's have a look and address these two opening builds. Two different builds. Talk us through them.
Well, MMA just doing a very standard SCV, and this allows him to punish if Taeja were to do something like that fast command center play. Taeja, on the other hand, going gas first, and there's actually a little bit of potential for the Reapers to do some damage. Sometimes Terran players, when they open up gas first, we could see him just put out a Marine, start the factory, and then immediately build a tech lab for a fast starport. Now, a lot of Terran players have steered away from this because one Reaper will beat that Marine and quickly. But MMA's actually just been producing Marines out of that barracks so far. Now, let him know that the Reaper's coming, but the factory is on the way. The Marines are still coming out for Taeja. He has not yet started to build any type of add-on. So it looks like he's just going to go straight for that starport and not invest any gas prior to that.
Well, MMA is going to throw down this factory very shortly as he reaches that 100 gas mark. SCVs are going to pass by each other in the center. Taeja's going to move forward. Move back towards his base here. And a second gas has been taken. So Taeja is again here. Where is that Reaper and how much information is it going to gather?
I really like this poke that's coming up from MMA. He's honestly not seen this terribly often. The last time was just an online cup by Thorch here. He picks off one of the Marines, but that Reaper will get its health back, and the Reaper Marine will beat just these two Marines. He does now get in and get the full read off, sees, okay, there's a tech lab waiting for this starport. That potential of
this Reaper is going to get picked off there. Nice move by Taeja. Kind of expected to die there. Well, the Banshee is on its way. Cloak has been researched. A reactor thrown down on this barracks. And over here on the side of MMA does have this command center, a more defensive setup here with a much faster command center. Do you think this Banshee can get a lot of damage dealt here? Do you think there's an opportunity for it to do so, considering how MMA's set up at home?
I mean, MMA's played a lot of Banshee styles himself. He already has a Viking queued up. The supply block, tiny bit of it, slowing it down just a few seconds. But by the time it takes this Banshee to cross the map, the Viking will be very close to coming out. What really I'm curious about now is, since there's no engineering base on the map for MMA, will he save this scan? He absolutely has to, otherwise this Banshee does have potential to do a lot of follow-up damage. There's still not a tech lab on the map, so MMA's not even close to starting production on a Raven.
where's that starport going to go next? Tech Lab is being put down when it's on the factory here. So scans are going to be important. They're going to be very important. A second Viking is being made. The Banshee is not too far away. Let's have a look if there are scans available once this Banshee arrives. Cloak is almost ready here. Just a couple of seconds left.
He does have a scan saved on each of his orbital commands. Of course, he's decided instead of investing in the missile turrets, to invest in that. And there's the Cloak. If he brings the Marines a little bit closer, he could pick off this Banshee. This is exactly where he wants the Banshee, chasing it down. If he escapes with it, it's very nice. There's still a second scan available for MMA, but ideally, you really want to kill it with just that one scan. And he's actually lifted off the command center that has the energy for another scan. So he can't pick off this Banshee just yet. And in fact, he could try to come in and snipe some of these Marines.
Oh, he is going to get one, and he may get a second here, and he is going to get that second. The Banshee's still alive, going to get into the SCV line. Doesn't take one out there. He moves back in again, but he's got to be very careful. As soon as that command center lands on the natural, he's going to lose this Banshee in there. The scan reveals the Banshee. No longer cloaked and does get picked off. We do see tank production starting here from Taeja, and he also has another Banshee being built. Another Banshee over here is cloaked up, does get an SCV. Oh, scan goes down. 2 Vikings should be able to clean it up, and they do. And a good defense so far from MMA here.
Yeah, very solid. Not really taking too much in the way of economic damage. Much different than we saw the Banshee harass MMA do to Taeja on the map like Derelict Watcher. But it does look that both of our players are at least Taeja's showing with this second barracks in his stem. He's going to go for bio. I'd be shocked if MMA did anything other than bio, but maybe that could just be where he throws the wrench into the system here. As Raven does come out now, so he has a little bit more mobile detection in case there's more Banshees prowling, and there is just one more sitting here on the map. But with siege tanks, it's very difficult for both players to press the other on the ground at the very least. So I'm kind of just wondering where he's going to take this. MMA, I'm wondering, when is he going to actually commit to this tech? Because Stim is already on the way. Taeja is going to get a little bit more maneuverability on the map if there isn't some either fast units like Hellions put out, or just additional infrastructure to get out more siege tanks.
Goodbye, Banshee. That was an easy pick off there for MMA. And there's a lot of money being thrown into these Banshees. Haven't really done that much for Taeja. They haven't put him in a big lead. Though, as we see in the bottom of the screen, there is a 2 SCV difference between the both of them. Taeja being in the lead with that, despite not being able to pick up too many kills with these Banshees. Somehow has found himself in a bit of a lead here. But if we look over to Taeja's side of things now, he's got 3 tanks on that natural, is starting to add on extra production inside his main base, up to 2 barracks with the 3rd one being added on now. But it is MMA who's making a movement across here. That Raven's going to be useful. But where exactly is he going with these units?
Taeja's double production of Vikings, I think, is exactly what he needs to hold this attack off. It's a bit of a surprise play by MMA. Tanks on the low ground at the very most could get this tech lab, but that would be requiring to go super, super close. And with this one drop that's coming in, he's looking for a weird position, but Taeja's double Viking production should allow him to push this back. A supply block actually prevents any more units. If he cancels this stim, that'd be an absolutely huge win, as MMA's already started his +1 attack back home. Still no stim for him. Using the Seeker missile on the siege tanks, Taeja's bringing everything over to try to shove this back, and I think he should be able to stave this off, but at the cost of those few SCVs.
Yeah, nice defense there from Taeja, and that one tank even survives on the high ground, so he does push him back while maintaining a supply lead, and 16 supply lead, and the SCV difference, even though losing a few, didn't lose too many, where it's a major difference between the both of them. It's equal, as we can see at the bottom there, and a 3rd command center being pushed down by Taeja, likewise on the other side, but MMA lost a lot in that. The army supply is quite heavily favored towards Taeja, 40 to 17. He's got a much, much larger army. Is there an opportunity for him to use that? Especially because, you know, Marines are a big focus of MMA's army, but Stim has only just been started. There must be a window of opportunity here for Taeja somewhere.
Well, I mean, getting these upgrades together and trying to move into medevac, or him just going for a full-on frontal assault saying, I've killed some of your siege tanks, maybe I can break you. It's important for Taeja, I think, to try to make some sort of use out of this much faster stim pack. It's about maybe 1/3 the way done now for MMA, but he's had it for a couple minutes. MMA sees this with this SCV that Taeja is at least thinking about taking this 3rd base. The command center is very close to completion, but we also have to look at how Taeja's now getting ready to move into double engineering rate as well. MMA's finished his +1 attack, And this game is, for all intents and purposes, going to be pretty even, mostly because Taeja hasn't moved out immediately afterwards. Since both players still have siege tanks, and it's very difficult to press into these.
What he can do is keep MMA away from taking his third base for as long as possible while keeping his own third base up and running. He's got the command center ready. He's going to put it down and mine from his third very, very soon here. And the longer he keeps MMA away from that, the more of an advantage that Taeja will gain. And MMA realizes that threat. Actually sieges up here with 2 tanks. It's going to get damaged. A nice spread by Taeja.
Yeah, he's just pressing into these siege tanks. He doesn't care. They're spread just enough that the splash damage doesn't really do too much. And that Viking lead he's had allows him to push this away. His siege tanks have the vision advantage, and he takes out all but the last tank of MMA. And this is a situation where with 3 siege tanks for Taeja, he can force him to pull SCVs to try to stop this force. And we're already seeing him getting ready to move out to take the third base on the other side. He doesn't want to go towards this force. And Taeja's saying, you have to fight me.
Yeah, exactly. He could even start dropping inside the main base like MMA was doing previously here. And a big scan, finds his units, and Stim is not ready yet, only seconds away, and he loses everything in the middle there.
Taeja exploiting the failed attack